Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, Earl Kitchings, and as usual on Tuesday, we like to bring you another edition of our show, and we hope that our shows have been helpful or informative or a combination of the two for you and your friends and family, something you can use to have a conversation about as opposed to just always talking about the weather. A lot of times we search for things to talk about, and here at the Kitchings Table, we hope that we're providing you with a buffet of things that maybe have crossed your mind or maybe haven't crossed your mind that you wish somebody would talk about. Joining me as usual on my on our show today is my co-host, Ms. Ronline Cannady. Good morning, Ronline.
Good morning, Earl. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing wonderfully well. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
So, in the past 5 years, one of the major topics in this country, I don't know if it's a topic in countries outside of the U.S. borders, but I definitely know in this country, the topic of housing has become a very important and strong issue simply because it seems as though there's not enough housing or housing is too expensive or a combination of the two. And it seems like every time I'm riding around and looking around, there seems to be a subdivision or an apartment complex coming up out of the ground. And in this day and time, when we look at subdivisions, for the most part, many subdivisions are having homes built very, 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 and I can't emphasize very enough, close to one another. Whereas you can almost reach out of your garage or your bathroom, depending on what side of the house you're on, and touch your neighbor's house. It's just that close. There's not a whole lot of space as it once used to be uh, between houses, and not a whole lot of space for a front yard or a backyard in this day and time. Everything is being really squeezed in, to put it mildly. So I was wondering where this housing market is going as we continue to see prices rise for buying a house, prices rise for renting an apartment or renting a home. It's just unfathomable to me to see a home that people are renting that costs in upwards of $1,200-$1,500 for rent. Uh, Same thing with some of the apartments, $1,000+ for rent. When we talk about the incomes of people, so this is part of why our topic for today deals with uh, solutions to possible solutions. I'll put it that way: possible solutions. It may not be the solution, but it's definitely possible solutions to the housing market and the housing crisis to some degree. And our title for our topic today is affordable and contained housing. Affordable and contained housing. And for those people who are familiar with the word contained housing or container housing, this is what we're going to be talking about today because this particular type of housing is probably going to be the housing ventures or the way housing goes in the future in places, especially where they are land locked or land confined because you don't have a lot of space. But you look at a lot that it might be, let's just say, uh, 50 to 60 feet wide and 100 feet deep. And you say, well, you can't put a whole lot in there, but this solution, these container homes are a solution. So, Ron Lee, I know we chatted a little bit about it, but Were you aware of just how this solution to the housing issue is slowly or rapidly, depending on where you live, becoming the solution for people to have housing?
Yes, I think you and we touched on that sometime back on one of our shows for the college campuses,
Right.
what they were planning on doing in our area. And when I thought about it, when you said the word landlocked, it just took me back to the area that they were looking for, like in our area, in the Arlington area, for Jacksonville University, of resolving their housing issue, and I guess any other colleges where that issue is going to exist as well. And of course, we have a lot of rivers around. So therefore, these containers, being able to stack them would be the most likely, as you say, solution for that, rather than trying to buy up more property somewhere else where the land, is a little farther from the campus, wherein they can clear out some land and start stacking them on top of each other.
Well, the thing about this particular solution, and it appears that the people who utilize these or manufacture these containers are on the cutting edge of making sure that they come up with configurations that make sense, because they're almost like Lego blocks. You build them, you stack them, and you put them in there. What do you think about that?
So looking at the Lego blocks kind of thing, I do understand, as you said, they're stacking up on top of each other. It kind of reminded me of some of those homes that I saw out in China, I think. Those areas where they're stacked on top of hills. And it's like you can't imagine, a living space the way they have them, but, they're there. The same thing is when I was going through California, they stacked on top of hills. And then in some other places where I saw in the mountains where they made housing out of, just out of the terrain itself. So, I mean, when I think about it, we our the existence of human beings, they made caves or what have you, and made those livable things, homes. And I guess it's the same practice today, as far as taking the containers. And when you think about it, I'm looking at it from this aspect, as one of our people broke it down for me. If you could live into a mobile home or a a train, on a train, I mean, you have your bedding, you have everything. You can in the cars, you can eat, um, toiletry, all of that, can happen. So to be able, like you say, the configuration, to be able to stack them, to be able to Lego block them, if you will, those are the things that is happening today. And of course, one of the senators, I'll get his name for you momentarily.
Mom already got the mail. I already. I'm sorry.
Um, so anyway, the bottom line is, um, when we talk about housing, it is a big problem. As we know, we can go through our downtown areas. I don't care where we live, what city, what state, you're going to see homeless people. There are a lot of buildings that are not being used. So they're saying, okay, why isn't the city uh, utilizing those buildings to take people off the street and put them into decent housing and help rehabilitate them in order to get them to be able to live on their own again, or provide a permanent place for them to live, period, for the rest of their lives. And, I felt like this is one of the solutions. I mean, we throw away a lot of food, so feed the people, that kind of thing. Our money is being what I call wasted anyway, when you're not doing something. Whereas, make the money make sense, and as you always said, follow the money.
Well, this is one of the things that's going to have to make sense going forward. So let me just read something to you real quick. Shipping containers are being used to provide housing for homeless people. So when we talk about, these Lego type containers and being able to make them work, um, it's interesting because they go from calling it container to modular container homes, and these homes can be retrofitted with all kind of amenities and comforts of a normal apartment or home. So when you talked about people living in a hotel or a mobile home, uh, this isn't that much of a stretch when you talk about these container homes. And they also state that, shipping containers are transforming the world of homeless housing because they can be built and scaled quickly, efficiently, and cost effectively. And in some cities, these containers are being used as non congregated locations or facilities for homeless shelters. And I think to some degree, these make sense for the homeless communities, but they also make sense when we talk about the fact that you have housing for college students. If you have a situation where you need some housing and you don't have the money maybe to build something, or you don't have the space to build something, these have become an alternative plan. And when you talk about the funding or the necessary funds for such things, I'm sure the first question that will arise in thinking about this particular solution for housing is, well, how much do these things cost, and what is the cost for building a container home, depending on how many levels you want to utilize, and getting them to these locations. Because if you start thinking about rural parts of the country, which maybe or maybe not have a need for it, uh, getting a container to that location is one thing, but then building is a different thing. But there are companies, and I ran across several companies that now manufacture these containers. And I think what they're doing is they're manufacturing these containers kind of already cookie cutter structured, so that when they connect them and layer them together or put them on top of one another, uh, the places where you need to cut for windows and doors and things of that nature are already kind of there in place, so you don't have to do too much additional work once you drop them off. But when we talk about the fact that these are becoming solutions uh, for different communities, I know they are becoming popular. And, the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, is using containers as a solution for the housing demand there in that city. And one of the things I thought about, Ronline, was, well, they can build or use these. They're made out of metal. How do you ensure that the corrosion from the metal doesn't take place? Because, you know, it's one thing to live in a sort of a dry area where there's not a lot of water or moisture. But if you live in a different place, or, in the places where there's snow, that snow corrodes, that water corrodes metal. So maybe the structures are, as have some kind of Scotch guard, I guess would be a way to put around them. But as these homes, containers become more popular, the landscaping is going to be different. And from the outside, you can see they have a unique structure because they are so wide and so long. But then when you Lego them together, and I'm gonna show a floor plan and then how one of these looks from the inside, because I think aesthetically you're wanting to make sure on the inside it functions for you, not so much the outside. And then, of course, there you go. So you can see what the structure will look like. Now, the one on the bottom, that would be a 53-foot container. So the next time you're out and about and you see a truck with containers on them, take note of the length of them. They're about the same width. The length varies. So the longer it is, the more space you'll have. But then the upper photograph shows you just how two containers placed almost side by side can make for quite comfortable living space if you're single and just need that particular spacing, or you don't need a whole lot of space. It's like almost like a studio apartment. I mean, a studio apartment is, just one big room with uh, a bathroom. That's the way I looked at them when I was uh, had to look at apartments. A big room with a bathroom. But in this day and time, they're stating that the cost of these containers range anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. That's before they're delivered, and whatever other costs you may encounter to get them situated. So the companies that are constructing these can give you the details, and you'd be surprised just how much some of these container homes will run you. Um, Upwards $100,000 plus, even $200,000, depending on your configuration.
Mm.
Depending on your configuration. So they have some upside and then they have some cost. And the larger the floor plan, the more expensive it's going to get. And when you talk about a container home that costs you $175,000,
Hmm.
the beautiful part about it is you don't have to wait 90 days or 100 days or 120 days for them to build that home. Once you got your space, the land where you want to put it, and it's like already built out, they bring it, connect it, set it up, and probably within a matter of 60 days, if they're working continuously, you're ready to move in. It's just a matter of what you want. But when we talk about, I think the two critical areas of students housing or low income people needing housing, uh, I think those are probably more of the best ways for these container homes to be solutions. As you and I talked about housing for homeless, it just depends on who the individual is and what their circumstances are, because I think a lot of times we equate homelessness with mental health, and it's not always a mental health issue. It's unfortunate that the country got away from mental institutions, and now people who have a need for mental health care are really out on the streets with kind of nowhere to go. And then when they create a problem, instead of sending professionals to deal with it, they have to deal with law enforcement authorities who are not trained to deal with people with mental health issues. But that's a subject and a topic for a whole nother day on the Kitchings Table that we can talk about. One thing I did want to go into was the fact that with this affordable housing, with this container housing, uh, I'm wondering whether the federal government is going to really delve into this particular type of housing under their uh, Section 8A housing codes. I wonder if that's going to be something the government gets into. And Section 8 provides rental housing assistance to low-income households by paying private landlords on behalf of the tenants. Approximately 68% of this assistance benefits seniors, children, and individuals with disabilities. So
Mhm.
that's Section 8. And what they are saying in 2022, about 2.3 million out of 5.2 million households received rental assistance through Section 8. So if you are an up and coming landlord and into the real estate market and you're looking for ways to put people into housing that is affordable, and these containers are the way you're going, I'm just wondering, will they qualify for Section 8 housing? What do you think?
And that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. It just made me think about it could qualify as Section 8 housing. I know a couple of people, I would look at that as the same as a manufactured home or a a mobile home. So, if those are for rent or what have you, people are renting those through Section 8 vouchers as well. So I don't see why this would be any different. So, however it's classified, I'm sure that they will do what needs to be done in order to make sure that is approved.
Well, I think a a dwelling, a single family residential dwelling, um, apartments, or um, that type of living situation, and mobile homes, because they've overcome or been approved, or the codes have been set for them going years and years back. With this particular new thought of housing based on these structures, based on these containers, of course, there has to be some vetting of safety issues and other issues that may disqualify them from this Section 8A housing until the government and the people who are manufacturing these, put the right codes in place and the right things in place in order for them to qualify. I think they are a great solution. If the government is not going to qualify them right now, I think it's just a matter of time before the two entities come together, because this is going to be the housing of the future for some communities and for some people. And because there is such an abundance, let me tell you, you may not think about it, you may not realize it. And these containers are containers that are put on ships to ship products from one country to another country, from where it's manufactured to places where they're going to put it on sale. But I know of a location uh, close to my home where there are probably about 20 acres of containers stacked on top of each other, at least 5, 6 containers high, if not higher. And because these containers are just sitting around, again, those may not qualify, but there are manufacturers who are taking those same containers, maybe, as they say, renovating them, shoring them up to make them safe and secure, and seeing what can happen. I was reading also that the weakest part of a container is the roof,
Hmm.
which goes back to what I was talking about when we talk about snow. If the weakest part, because the walls of the container support that top part, and if the corrosion factor sets in or the weight factor sets in, it could be a problem. So I think it's just going to depend on location and the coding of these. But from an 8A, from in a Section 8 housing situation, but otherwise, it's getting ready to be the solution, and it's not going to be long before you see these communities. I think, when you brought up the point about mobile homes, uh, here in Florida, there are communities that that's all there are in those communities. Mobile homes, single, double wide, some of them triple wide.
Mhm.
Very, very nice. They have to be secured in the ground because, of course, winds will lift them up, or tornadoes definitely will lift them up. And in Florida, where we have hurricanes, if not the wind, then the water, or both. So, but these communities exist especially for seniors, not so much in low income areas, because when you see them, it's really a planned community. When you look at these mobile home communities, it's a planned community. Some of them are gated, but they're very nice looking, very attractive. Everything is put in place, and I'm sure they're expecting you to maintain it. So I don't see any difference between that and these containers. And as they continue to become some type of housing that qualify for assistance, and as you mentioned, vouchers, housing vouchers for low income families. Uh, if salaries and incomes are not going to keep up with housing, we're going to have a bigger problem. And like I said, when we talk about the fact that the rent nowadays is just astronomical for apartments, I ask myself, who can afford some of these apartments at $1,200, $1,500 a month, when some people barely, get by with a couple of $1,000s a month? So it's going to be interesting.
Yes. So there's a project called April Housing, and they brought up two key people. One of them was Dr. King, because of the Housing Act of 1968. And then the other person that they brought up was Senator Edward Brooke of
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts. He was the
Mm-hmm.
first, so you know about him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, housing wasn't supposed to take up no more than 30% of your income. And I felt like this when you said that, here we are. It's like every check looks like it's going towards your rent,
Right.
your mortgage now. And you still need to purchase food. You still need to, and if you're owning a home, you have property taxes to maintain, so that's an additional expense, in relating to that. And if you're carrying a mortgage, that comes with finance charges that's being carried every month until that mortgage is paid in full. So when you think about, where does the cap start? I mean, stop. Um, it looks like it's just totally out of control since 1968 up until now. Those are a lot of years to say, okay, are we going to keep pricing people out of a home?
Right.
You hear more and more people are living in their cars more now than ever, having to raise the children basically out of vehicles rather than into a home in which, and they're contributing to, Americans' cost as well. So I do hope solutions come and they come fast.
Okay, well, we have reached that appointed time where we must take the time to let everyone know that they are watching and listening and tuned in to the Kitchings Table Tuesday mornings, 10 a.m. Via YouTube. Or if you just want to check us at your leisure, you can go to our YouTube site and find us under the Kitchings Table. But we are halfway through our show today, and our show today is affordable and contained housing, where we're talking about the container industry now becoming a new industry. Instead of just putting things in that ship from place to place around the world and on these cargo ships, They are now becoming the housing of the future. Ronline, I found a website by Container Homes USA, and they manufacture these homes, and they talk about, you know, looking for your dream home. You're looking for a place. Uh, if you want some recreational housing, if you're a hunter or a fisher and you want to be out and about, or if you want to have your parents who maybe seniors living close to you, or just working space, whatever you may need it for, this is what these container homes are looking for. If you would just show everyone that other slide, I think I got put there so they can see what that looks like. So the top picture shows you what stacking them will look like. If you stack them, it doesn't take a lot of space when you stack them. So that's a 3-story. But then the one on the bottom, Ronline, that is a 2-car garage, 4-bedroom container home. 2-car garage, 4-bedroom, 2-bath container home. That's what these containers are looking like. So depending on how much land space you have, the modular container homes, as Container Homes USA states in their literature, our modular container homes turn your needs into reality. You can take 4 to 5 of these, stack them up side by side, and then on top of each other, and have a nice home, a garage, a main living area, and a secondary living area. And if you want to put one more on top of that, for you to have kind of like a balcony area, you can do that too. But space-wise, they make absolute the best sense. Even more so than a mobile home, because at a mobile home, Ronline, I've never seen a garage at a mobile home.
No. And
And
you know what? Here's what I'm thinking. Yeah, here's what I'm thinking, Earl. When I look at this, you should not, that just say one more, just one more Lego block of space.
Yeah.
All your storage area. Yeah. All your storage areas. So normally in your home, you should only see what you want to see, because in that storage area, no one has to go there. You can put your Christmas trees, your seasonal items there or whatever, and then put them back when you're done with them. So, and then you say garage space. No, yes. I thank you so much for finding.
Yes, they are. I mean, that's what they're doing. So the photograph on the bottom is a 4-bedroom, 2-level container. But what that is 6 containers side by side, stacked on top of one another, that make for that home. So the side of the container is where they cut it out for the garage. And as you can see, the windows on the very top level, there are windows there. There's that middle level, there's a patio where you walk out. And then if you look at it from the left side, looking back to the right, you can actually see how those 2 containers are side by side. And when they, connect them and open them up and have all that space, it's like, well, yeah, that works. So, but that particular 4-bedroom home could run you $200,000 plus, but it's very nice looking. It's very efficient. And again, the only thing you have to worry about is finding the land and, making sure that it's well built. That's one of the things. But then what came to mind too, Ronline, is this, and here's something that may be a new thing for you. What about the insurance on these?
Yeah,
it's a different kind of dwelling, so it may require different types of insurance. So as this becomes a popular mode of housing, you have to think about, well, what about the insurance?
Yes, so right now, what comes to mind is dealing with property and casualty. I guess the same type of insurance that covers the containers today, those those portables that we've often seen as part of manufactured homes and things like that. So it will probably be the same thing, as well as the same thing with mobile homes. It's more like a vehicle insurance rather than a like for housing or whatever. And this could be a greater solution because a lot of people now can't afford the insurance on their homes, on their natural homes. So, uh, yeah, good. That's a great that's something to definitely research. It's definitely something to research.
Well, because it is such a new commodity and because it is being done um, at a slower pace right now, simply because the companies that are manufacturing these container homes or modular homes, they are on the cutting edge right now of uh, designing them and building them. And as they perfect this manufacturing and construction, they will take into account all the things that are necessary in order to make these containers, these modular homes, work in their favor. It's just going to take a little time. But as they are going through the process, as they're going through this process, and the thing would be to identify, well, where might these communities of container homes be, and who, what companies are manufacturing? Because I guess if you are the insurance companies, you become, or if you're the agent for the insurance companies that now must insure these, you know, having a good relationship with the manufacturers and making sure everything is up to code and things like that will help the industry grow a lot faster, because now they don't have to put you on hold. It's like, oh, you got a modular home. Well, we don't insure those. You know, if you had a
Mhm.
mobile home, I would insure, but we don't insure the container homes yet. But if you're on the cutting edge and you already, if you are the agent for insuring container homes, and everybody's got to come to you because you know, it's like, okay, you know this business. Well, there's a new opportunity, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. It's a new opportunity.
Yes, yes, yes. Because some states are forcing me to get my property and casualty insurance. So, yeah, may as well. And my thing was, it's like, okay, well, I don't see how that's going to benefit me. But now that we're talking about it on the Kitchings Table, yeah, I think I will need to take a look at that. Thank you so
Well,
much for bringing it to my attention this way.
the city of Charlotte is probably the template, and as they continue to prosper in that, the next areas where you would see some of this will be, instead of uh, land developers deciding that they want to do the brick and mortar apartments, I believe that they will take the land that they would normally build uh, 2, 3-story, 4-story apartment buildings, and now they will turn that land space into modular home spaces. And I found an article in the newspaper here locally back in the beginning of May about a home that's down at Jacksonville Beach, and it's called a lean uh, home. It's real skinny looking, but when you turn that modular container um, vertical, and you take it, and you know the length of your car, the width your car go in, um, but you take that bottom, you make that your garage. Now, I don't. I guess you got to have a small car because a big car is not going to work when you open the doors. But depending on what you're trying to put in there, you take one side for the garage, the back side maybe for your den with a patio, and then you put your living space on top. And so it's two of those 53-foot containers stacked on top of each other that can make for these spaces. So when you do that, and like I said, let's just say 70 feet across is how much space you'll need for one of these. So you can take that plot of land and mathematically just cookie cutter it any kind of way you want to. And now instead of waiting on materials to be shipped in and waiting on the construction crews to build and all those things, because it does take a while. Uh, the Lego block plan, they trucking them in and setting them up and boom, boom, boom. And the next thing you know, there's that new subdivision or there's that new apartment space or whatever. I'm curious to hear what they're going to call these type of communities. It's apartment complex. No, it's not apartment. Well, it's a housing. Well, it's not really housing because it's modular. Well, whatever they're going to call it. But this is going to be the future in dwellings for homes. And I tell you what, Ronline, one of the best places to have a container home, if you've got some beach property and you want to utilize your space, because I'm sure you can situate those two containers into the beach property and secure them in a very strong way. It'd be kind of hard for winds to really kind of turn those things over if they're locked in well enough. And so it'll be just interesting to see where this whole industry goes and how it will find its niche in the marketplace, because it's coming. There's no doubt about it. And as we talked about housing for low income or housing for homelessness or housing for living space on a college campus that may be landlocked. And I can think of a couple of colleges where they're landlocked, but these would make sense, especially for a single student. It's a studio apartment. That's the way I look at it. One of these containers becomes a studio, and you can stack two together and put 20 of them next to each other, and that's 40 apartments in a matter of half the space. So it just depends, and I think as they work to perfect this, and I think if the roof is the part of that container that requires the most attention, they'll find a way to make the very top of whichever one is on the top, make that roofing, make it a little bit stronger, especially when we talk about insurance purposes, because that's probably going to be the first thing they look at is the roofing of that container. But it's coming, and everybody better get ready.
Yes, so like you said, we better embrace the property and casualty for those of us that are agents, just on the health side or the life side as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, because when I think about it, I thought about just being in a railroad car, and just being on, a lot of people now they're living on the ocean rather than on land. So you got the housing boats. That's another thing people are doing now, and they look like they're containers, but they're not out there on the ocean that's floating out there. And they have it, tied to land through a ramp and things like that, like you would do secure a boat.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're living on, it's especially the seniors. The seniors are finding different ways to be able to live um, affordably. So the containers is one thing. Living out there on the ocean, that's another thing that's happening. And it's a shame that it has gotten to be this way because of the land. The price of land is so high, and the price of housing just is not affordable. So I'm going to take this time, to tell you all thank you so much for tuning in to the Kitchens Table. And I'm going to bring, if you don't have anything else to say about the housing, you ready for me to bring forth our Black History Acknowledgement?
Well,
Our
you go on and talk a little bit, and I'll set you up so we can make sure you got your photograph ready.
Okay, all right. So the person that I want to talk about today, his name is Colson Whitehead. Some people have known him as Arch Colson. Um, well, Arch Whitehead. Some people know him as um, Chip Whitehead, but recently he decided that he wanted to go with Colson and make that his, is part of, it is his part of his name, but to be known by that as Colson Whitehead.
Right, there you go.
So, um,
You got
let's,
him.
no, I don't have him. Well,
Okay.
let's see. Let's see. Yep, I
There
have
you
them now. Okay. All right. So, Colson Whitehead, he is a Harvard University graduate. He is a writer, and he is a two-time Pulitzer Prize winner for his literary work. And the reason why I wanted to bring him to your attention today is because he recently released a book called The Crook Manifesto. But the reason why I wanted to bring him to your attention today is because of his work dealing with the Underground Railroad, which earned him a National Book Award for his fiction. And my understanding that this was one of the books, you know how Oprah used to do on her show, tell you what book to read. Well, the Underground Railroad was one of the selections for her book club 2.0. And it was chosen also by the former president, Barack Obama. He This was one of the five books that he read during his summer vacation. So I want to, because we're talking about the housing, and the Fair Housing Act was one of the things that allowed us to be able to even be able to afford, for those of us that are homeowners, to be able to afford housing today because of the groundwork that was laid by many that came before us, such as the late Dr. King and the late Congressman, Senator Edward Brooke of Massachusetts. And those people and all of those people who have gone before us wanted us, understood that it was important for us to have, to be able to be homeowners, to be able to be landowners, because that was the only way we were going to have a say in the United States of America in which we live. So Colson Whitehead, he is a dynamic writer, and I want to make sure I presented him to you all today. So for those of you who do not know him, start picking up his books and start reading what the things that he's talking about. So I turn it over to you, Earl, and thank you for allowing me to bring this to you all today. And for those of you who don't know anything about the housing, please look that up so that you can understand what we're talking about today and how our taxes are being utilized and tax reform, and be able to understand all of that, how it plays in a part of our affordable housing if we're going to ever have any.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for us today here on the Kitchings Table. We hope that you've learned something or gained something that will help you going forward. So, from my co-host Ronline Cannady, I'm W. Earl Kitchings saying until next Tuesday morning, go out and do something good for somebody else today. Have a great week, everybody. Bye bye.